Greetings, everyone. Tommy Hawksblood here, calling from the Big Island of Hawaii. I hope everything's okay where you are. Hope things are going good. Seems like there's a lot of things happening that's waking everybody up to think about their life, think about their living conditions, think about their friendships. Most people are quarantined, being locked down. I mean, I know people don't like it. People don't want to wear masks. There's a lot of things going on right now. But for me, I follow the basic rules, and it's not something that I made up. I mean, even Jesus said it: follow the laws that exist. If you don't like them, change them. So whatever you don't like, we should be changing them instead of saying, "Well, that says this, or we have to do that." No, we create them, and if as a people, we should realize that and be able to go out there and do something about it. But most people don't want to do anything, don't know the truth, and don't want the truth. This show that I'm going to do, which I do every week, or I try to do every week, is about truth of religion, spiritualism, how to find it, how to grow within it, how to make it more real in your own life without the lies, stories, and fairy tales. All right, I'm going to bring a special guest on. I might have another guest on, and we'll see if they come in. TJ Morris, she has a pretty big setup, which we're all involved in. And we got a bunch of different sites. If you want to join, please do. Get in touch with TJ Morris. I'm going to bring her on so she can say hello and introduce herself.
Can you hear me, Tommy? I just unmuted.
Okay, you're fine. We hear you fine.
Thank you, Tommy. I've gotten old and I'm really embarrassed to do my face. Yeah, and but we're all getting old, so thank you. And I don't know if our guest is going to show up or not because he was talking to Janet Carolesson on the phone. So my name is Teresa J. Thurman Morris, and I like to introduce people in social entrepreneur world. And Tommy's been helping me since Janet Carolesson introduced him to me. And they came on they came on TJ Marciti radio. There was no Aquarian radio. There was TJ Marciti radio. And so Janet and he and I started the Stargate to the Cosmos. There's a lot of videos out there. And I'm really looking forward to working with Tommy in this new platform he's created. And this is his asset. He pays for this asset and he's teaching me about it. So thank you, Tommy, for first being my friend and putting me on your show for the first time. It's a momentous occasion, 2020. Thank you.
Well, thank you for coming on. Now I'm gonna take this around in a big circle, just so you know. The way I speak is circular, meaning we'll go from one subject to another and come back to the original subject. They all are part of the same, so I guess we can. I feel you can go in any part of it; it'll still relate to the circle that we're talking about. I just want to start it off about religion and spiritualism and where we went or how we got where we are. The word is storytelling. Whether you write it on a piece of paper, a piece of cloth, on a stone, whatever you write it, and you write a story there. That might be him. Hold on.
Okay.
Does he live in Georgia?
Yes, sir.
Hold on, I gotta guess. Just can you say
Yes, sir.
something? I'm gonna mute myself.
Yes, sir. Thank you. Hi, my name is Teresa J. It's Teresa Jeanette for TJ. Teresa Jeanette Thurman Morris, and this is my first time appearing on Thomas Anthony Sinisi's show. Most of his friends in free social media know him as Hawksblood or Hawk, and he does a really good job in our clubs. And he has been the membership chairman for many years. And his friend he's introduced me to is Dr. Bruce Cornett. And he came on my radio shows. And Dr. Bruce is also working with Janet Carolesson with our Ascension Center network and what Tommy and I and she have created since 2012. And I love Janet and I love Tommy, and they both started with me, TJ Mars ET Radio. So they'll always be a part of my life. And so we'll always be friends. And the reason is we all started doing radio shows. Now, I'm not saying we didn't already do radio shows for other people, but we started doing radio shows together 2012 with Lynn Caston, Apollo, Dr. Alexander Sasha Lesson. And we were going to do conference together called Stargate to the Cosmos. And we did that, but my daughter died in that time frame and I didn't get to attend. So she was very sick. And so that's why a lot of you may not know me in Janet or Tommy's world, but you may know them in my world. So what we're doing is combining worlds in cyberspace. So I'm an author, and I just have been home being a caregiver and trying to define who I am as a stay home in my room cyborg, kind of living and dying over and over. So Tommy and I started discussing our past lives and how we could start being communicators and have conversations together. And so he's been really good to me, and he's caring. He's always called me to see how I'm doing when I didn't have any other friends. And him and Janet were the only two that seemed to be able to stay in communication with me. So I don't know what that's about, but I have to tell a lot of people that are on his team, he shares people. So thank you, Tommy, for sharing me with your people, your following, your people.
Well, thank you, TJ. Well, I want to get back to this part about the storytellers. I think mankind would be pretty bored with their lives and what they do if they didn't have stories to focus on, take their attention off of daily life and the problems that people have in this lifetime. But we always build a scenario, and man, not women, men, and I'll say this over and over. I never read the books, even though I still do want to. Men are from Mars and women are from Venus.
Yeah.
Well, the idea of that statement makes it so real because men and women are so different at every aspect of life. I mean, they're trying to become unity together, unite, where men and women are equal, but we're different in so many ways, including the word compassion, love, and power and ego, and all those words are a lot different between women and men in general. There's always an exception to the rule. I mean, one person's ego just gets inflated. Somebody like the president. I mean, but men, it's normal, but women, usually it doesn't. And it really didn't happen in history. And one of the few people in history was Joan of Arc. Her ego was her power, but her ego was her talking to God. So when she did what she did, she was doing it from her compassion of life and humans. But men did not perceive that because a lot of men got killed during the wars and everything. And they killed her at such a young age. But if she would have ever survived, she would have probably been one of the most powerful women on the planet. But men don't like that idea. Even now, there's many millionaire women now, multi-millionaires, who are getting power, which they never had all through infinity, all through history. Now, when we go into religion, religion started with Hinduism, the first religion on this planet. Before that, it was animal worship. And hopefully, if you think normal, without all the other stories, what we do have as far as our basic history is then came deities. Deities were usually half animal. Some of them were. And they were based on half animal and half human, because that's basically what the religion was, shifting over to deities. But the two most powerful deities, and I'll say this because I worked with both of them, Shiva and Green Tara. But Durga is the highest deity in our realms, meaning to the higher realms that we go to. But I'm going to get into that a little bit because religion's losing the biggest part of what it needs, the same as spiritualism is missing the most important part. And the word is spiritual. Now, I'm going to let TJ interject, but I just want to finish this. The idea of what the word spiritual even means was written by a man. All right. Where did he get his idea of what spiritual meant? All words that came from man came from their limited understanding of who and what they were and where they were. Now, obviously, if you talk to somebody in ancient times, they don't know about all the objects. But if you look at the history that we find artifacts, I mean, they had glasses, they had bowls and things like that. But when you talk about electronics, they were not there. Not for a long period of time. I'm not going to be talking about ancient aliens way before the human races were settled on planet Earth, because there's many in multiple different realities and different universes and galaxies. But the ones I'm only going to talk about are the ones that directly work with the world: Russia, China, Germany, France, Italy, and the United States. I mean, in different ways. Now, there's proof of a lot of things that people let slide by their mind. This whole thing, whether who is Putin supporting, who is Russia really dealing with. Well, if anybody ever spent time listening to Putin, listening to him speak, listen to the things he said, they would be a lot more aware why and how come he knew Mr. Trump. And nobody wants to face that. He actually spoke to tell Trump to do something when he said, if you don't do it, I will do it. And he told Trump, and this is months before he was elected, to go out and tell the world what actually happened at 9/11. And then he said, I want you to tell the world what you're doing with aliens. And then he turned around. Putin on Russian TV said he's dealing with 27 alien races. 2 of them want to destroy the planet. And at that point, he spoke that out. I wasn't translating. I had to translate it because it was in Russian. But he talked about global warming. He wants global warming. He wants to be able to farm 9 months a year instead of 4 to 5 months a year. He thinks that's a perfect thing. He cares about his country, even though there's rebels going on and everything. Realize he's probably one of the richest people on the planet, or maybe is, and he's going to be in power until he dies. So he cares about his family in a great way, what they're going to eat, how they're going to live. So he doesn't want his planet destroyed. Whether he likes people in Russia, Russian people like people in the United States, China, or anything else, it's not really that important as far as how much he cares about his own people and himself. He wants to live in peace in his reality. So for people to say, well, he didn't know Trump and he's more involved in the UFO world than anybody because he's openly admitting it to his whole country. If the United States came out and said that, it would be a different ballgame for the whole United States and the world. Now, we got other countries that just came out last week saying the United States is working with aliens. They did this and that and the other thing. So until we decide, but see, we have a serious problem with that as far as the spiritual side. I don't see too many people on this planet. I'm not speaking, I'm speaking about everybody on the planet, not one particular race, one religion. There is very few souls, if there are that, of spiritual beings on this planet. Drones, crossbred, whatever you want to call anybody on this planet, are not spiritual. Do not do anything spiritual. But what I'm going to get into today, and I don't think CJ knows too much about it, how and why we are what we are today, why we're not spiritual, why we're not moving forward. But I'm going to leave it at that. I'll let TJ put her remarks in right now. I'll give it back to you, TJ.
Okay, well, you put out a lot of information there for the first time on your show with you. You want me to talk about exactly what? Because you have the advantage. You heard me on Janet's show yesterday doing my first introduction, and we haven't got a chance to talk about that. But did you want to? What part of me do you want me to share?
What I want, if they want to see your whole character, your whole life, they can just listen to Janet's show. It was on 2 nights ago. But I want to get into, I don't want to be promoting each other. I don't promote myself that much. About what you, now, realize people, this is her truth. And I only bring people on to tell their truth if I feel it's even worth listening to. Sometimes the stories get crazy, but I'll let her put part of her story on. I'll let her fill in her blanks, and then we'll move on from there. But please, everything people say on my show is coming from them. I'm not making them say anything. And if I truly don't like what people say, I don't bring them back on again. It's that simple for me. I'm not a person that keeps people that just because they're famous on my show. When I did a show with Laura Eisenhower, she wanted me to come on a show. But the second I listened to her speak, I wouldn't want to be on her show. I want people that are real to what's happening right now, real to what's going to happen and how we can change it if we can. The little bit that we can, we need to do. So TJ, what do you? Let's start with your foundation. I mean, I don't want to go into the whole Anunnaki story. Janet Lawson goes into that. Lesson goes into that greatly if you want to hear it. So as a husband, but I want to go into the truth. Where do you think the first man, the very first man ever, human, was, and where did he come from?
Well, that's a loaded question, depending on who you ask. But these
I'm asking you,
stories,
TJ. This is about nobody else. What do
okay.
you believe is and who and where the first man came from and was?
Well, I have to go on different levels of my understanding and my consciousness, Tommy. And I realize that my intelligence isn't my consciousness. And the stories we tell on Earth are the only ones people are going to be able to understand me with. So you asked me, where do I think the first man of this planet as a human came from? Is that, let me understand what I'm to address.
That
That's the
sounds good.
question.
That sounds
Okay.
good.
In my recollection of who I am as a very old database, memory pack, our consciousness, our being, our soul, I personally have learned how to talk in English, in American English, because I was born in America. And I studied some other languages. So I'm speaking to Tommy in American English because that's my record of choice language because I was born an American. So in the reality that I created as a human sentient intelligent being is a relationship with myself, is to accepting that I am a humanoid, a sentient intelligent being of the human sentient intelligent being species. So I adopt that I am a humanoid and a human being. And I believe Tommy is asking me the question to relate to somebody that may be similar to me when you see them in a humanoid form. So uh, I believe now this is what I'm hearing from Tommy is where do I think like the first man or human came from as a biological. And so addressing those, like Tommy, because I've worked with Tommy for years, is I believe I've been asked to come on because normally we do a show on Sunday on my channel. So in my way, this is new for me to address people in physical form on another show. So to address Tommy's question, not to avoid it, is I personally believe we're all made of the same thing in another place in space. And because we were taught that whatever the beginning was, and we say the beginning was the word, and the word was without form if we speak and communicate with our senses. But if I have to address this, I believe it's in the story we tell ourselves with Tommy that we're humans. So uh, in my reality, the first man would be the people that were my parents, that were their born of their parents, and were born of their parents. Because I am a biological, and I came through the womb of my mother, I'm told, and have a birth certificate. So, regarding that story on this planet, from what I understand as consciousness, that is basically an intelligence of trying to communicate through my senses on the planet as a human with a brain and a mind, is that I'm inside me as a soul. And some people don't believe in souls, but the first human clay that I believe that we're going to talk about, maybe in the stories we tell ourselves on the planet, are stories that others that came before us, like before I was born, my parents, that I have a history of who I was biologically born to, is the fact that I have a birth certificate in the United States of America saying I'm human, and it says I'm white Caucasian. So the way that I was trained to say prayers by the side of my bed, which is a really good memory of my mother telling me, now I lay me down to sleep, and I couldn't remember it, so I'd look at her. But she taught me in stories when I was a little girl about the first man. And as a little girl, I wondered where the first man came from. It was one of the first stories because she gave me all these Bible books, which was in her Protestant religion of the First Baptist Church. And I was christened and baptized, sprinkling of water. And they didn't allow me to be baptized till I was 8 in my world. So I'm relating to Tommy through the only world I know how to talk with as a man that I was taught about, because I learned it as a story that my mother taught me when I was a little girl, telling my prayers. So I wanted to know who I was praying to, and I wanted to know about who the first people were. So when I was little, I couldn't even read yet. So I looked at the pictures. I was very impressed with the men in the Bible, because that's the only kind of books they provided me for a little while, because I couldn't read or write or go to school. So that story about who the men were, I would ask, but where did they come from? So I was one of those children that always asked why. And so they told me about the first man was Adam, and he married Eve, so to speak, in a spiritual or religious type of story. So that's the only way I know how to answer Tommy, is in my reality that is a story that was taught to me, and I soon learned to read and write. So, Tommy, that's the only way I know to tell you. Now, I can tell you all these stories that have been written just like the Bible, and we say basic instruction before leaving Earth among extraterrestrials that call themselves ET like me. Back to you, Tommy.
All right. Well, all I can say, through my life, one of the most important words that mankind has to learn for themselves is called, okay, it's basically remembering your past lives as being on this planet or this realm. And it's done a lot of different ways, whether you want to do it in dream state before you go to sleep, or while you're in dream state, or while you're in meditation, understanding the lives you experience in other lifetimes. Now, those experiences are you. Now, the difference is you have dreams, and you have to learn to separate the two. I mean, dreams intermingle with your awarenesses, so that's why they can pop into it as well. But being able to separate it takes a lot of work. But once you start learning your past lives, it helps you become more aware of the person you truly are, meaning soul, which TJ mentioned, and how and why and where it goes, why it's here, and all those questions. Nobody else is going to give you those answers that are really important to you about that. When I asked TJ to talk about the first man, the stories about the first man are so twisted and so many lies. And you'll say, why will I say that? Based on all my past lives, being one of the first ones in this reality, on this realm, on planet Earth, I was an Atlantean, and I was in Atlantis, and I worked with the people there. The one person that story got twisted, changed, I shouldn't say person. He was called a deity, not a person. He wasn't human. When man takes a deity and makes him human, like if you go to Mexico and you find out about Quetzalcoatl, he wasn't a man. He wasn't walking around as a deity. His soul was a deity when he was in the inner worlds. So when you twist it and make it like they're the same, they're not. When your body dies, that will be who you really are. It's going to be a soul. It has its own name. It's not like you change your name. You are a vibration of a being. Your name is your vibration of your energy. So I know people are even afraid to mention it out loud. Somebody will steal it. They can't steal your name. And mine's Dakar. And if you go in the inner worlds and just scream it out, everybody knows you by that. All right. The gods, the deities, and a lot of the souls all know you by that. Not by Tommy, Jones, Jimmy, Laura, Sue, any of those words. They're just man-made things that have no relationship to the level of your vibration of your soul. So when we go back to the idea, soul, when it came here, not when it was born here, not when it was hatched here, not when aliens made us here and things like that. The story gets twisted. And I'll tell you the facts, whether you want to listen to it or not, that's your choice. You could believe all the stories out there. Just because somebody writes something on a piece of cardboard, on a stone, piece of paper, or skin, doesn't make it real. Any story a person tells, usually he's telling a story from a lot of the different sides of a thing. If you're telling a story of somebody else's whole life, Were you in there when he went to the bathroom? Were you in there when he was sleeping? Were you in there when things happened? You know parts of it. So the only way you make a story is by filling in all those parts, twisted little ideas. So when people say God created Moses, when he actually created the Ten Commandments, but God wrote them. Really? God had to come down into this realm, which it doesn't, to carve a piece of stone to give us. They weren't really spiritual laws, they were physical laws. This is a physical reality we live in, and they're basically to make the body, the human body, live in a physical reality in a perfect situation. Nothing in the Ten Commandments would destroy or hurt the planet. Nothing. Not one of them. They never mention love in the Ten Commandments either. So the concept of love is so important. It was never here. It never existed. Second of all alien races are void of complete compassion and understanding of love. They watch us to see how and why we do what we do, but they don't understand it. They don't care if you feel good or bad. When they want to change something, if they do get involved, and I'll tell you, the biggest involvement all through history in the past 50,000 years was what they did with Tesla. They gave Tesla knowledge of changing reality for the human race. In that, he knew it was going to be dangerous to the world. Sadly, he went through with using it and giving it to the world. Now, we created the most horrible weapons on this planet with them, and we're still making more horrible weapons with that knowledge. It will slowly destroy the planet like it did when they first used it to take over the Atlanteans. The Atlanteans were spiritual beings. Now, something about spiritual, which is critically important, is the idea that there's 32 psychic abilities. You can go online and pull up 120, 150, but there's not that many that are really connected to the 32 psychic abilities. I mean, mankind says pouring sand on the ground, burning sticks, throwing tea leaves on the floor, all spiritual energies, and they could say what they want. But the true spiritual aspects of that are learning how to, the first few is like learning how to leave the body, astral projection, remote viewing, clairvoyance, audience. I mean, all those kind of abilities, remote viewing, all those abilities are singular to the 32 assets of it. But when you go through them, which I went through 30 of them, I couldn't get into 2 of them, never did them, couldn't prove them. But out of the rest of them, I proved. And they're all real. But they cannot be used now, people. You believe you can get one of the psychic abilities and use them? No, you can't. You will completely disrupt the balance of the universe. If one person could levitate a car or even a building, what if they levitated a planet and moved it? What if they did anything, if they really had that ability? See, the idea of, I was a magician half of my life as well, stage magician and a black, I shouldn't say black. I was a high priest. Learning about energy, when you play with it, the way mankind has learned to play with it, destroys reality. When we decided to go back in time, we opened up the biggest wormhole that exists today. That was because of the Philadelphia experiment, not because of the Anunnaki, not because of anybody else. It's because Tesla gave a person technology that we shouldn't have been playing with, and they did. So when they went back in time, and I was close to the person that was one of the only people that went back in time during the Philadelphia experiment, actually went back far enough to change reality because they killed somebody. It wasn't intentional. Somebody died. And that changed the actual movement of the population of people in politics. So now they tried to go back, and they're still trying. I'm not going to go into that whole story because that's not too spiritual. But they opened a wormhole, which is called the vortex. It is the most dangerous vortex on the planet. And it's up in Wanacue, New Jersey. Tesla worked with DuPont. He was working underground there. The aliens were coming in and out of the reservoir. After they flooded it, there was a city there which they flooded, and the ships were going in and out for 9 months. But Tesla was working with DuPont, and he came up with all these inventions and released them. The United States took 50 of them, which was the weapons, and gave the rest back to his country. There's a Tesla museum in his country. But as far as the weapons that the United States government took are the danger threats to the planet. They're not beneficial in any way to the human race as we perceive it or try to understand it. Now, getting to the spiritual side, who in politics understands God at any level or wants to? Now, the program, and it came out, I would say, close to around 1975.
You
And
froze.
What was that?
You froze 3 times in this. Do you
Oh,
know
no, I
it?
know that. Every 10
Okay.
minutes it freezes.
Oh, okay. As long as you're aware.
The government
Sorry.
has to keep an eye on me, make sure. But getting back to, all right,
Sorry.
we have government and we have people, we have religions, but how many of them deal with truth? Religion, Christianity couldn't even deal with its own person, meaning Jesus Christ. Buddha, there was 4 Buddhas, and the teachings haven't really changed much, but he never, ever talked about a God. Now, the consciousness idea came, I got roosters everywhere. The consciousness change
Nature.
came from combining that. All right. And Buddhism is it's a path. It's one path out of many. Let me just close that window. He's becoming obnoxious.
Okay. We'll do our best to get into body, mind, spirit today, but the dualism of body and mind and conscious is really big in the 21st century. And I am a precog and a recluse, and I've been going through a lot of pain and losing people and dying. So Tommy's been a good friend of mine, and he can be a little harsh with a lot of people if he doesn't think you're telling the truth. So uh, he was telling the truth. If he doesn't like your truth and doesn't agree with it, and so we all tell ourselves stories, and those roosters are part of nature, and I guess they're wild. But since they seem to be a part of our show, Tommy, why don't you tell us about the roosters? Because I hear them sometimes on your Tuesday show with E.T. Tina. So I'd like to put a plug in for you and Tina. I introduced you to, so I get credit for that. And they've been doing a really good job on Tuesdays. And I really commend them because she's of UK and she has a lot of background in going to events and her pictures on the walls. And I'm doing my best to help both Janet and Tommy just because they're in my social network of free social media. But he, just so people know, we pay for this as creators out of the goodness of our hearts and different software, each individual. And a lot of people in social media don't know how much it costs till they set up their own. So that's what I do on American Communications Online, my company, and I write books and have a imprint. But it's very hard to get along with people on the planet, especially in cyberspace. So I'm having to change my reality where I was just accepting anybody that wanted to be my friend in Facebook and Twitter and Pinterest and LinkedIn. And so now I'm starting to vet them to make sure they have a human body. So I would suggest that Tommy may have asked me, because we did not talk about what we were going to talk about. This was strictly off script, but him and Tina got that started on his show. And I asked him if we could still do my show because I need shows to keep up my brand on TJ Marcy Radio. And then he helps me set up a community to build on patreon.com because I was asked to be a YouTube creator and study that and help my friends, if they want to, become more personalities in human form like me so we can know they're human. So back to you, Tommy, and the rooster. So what are those, wild roosters, or are those your pets?
Well, they're wild roosters, and they're kind of like multiple. There's baby chicks all around my yard now, and they're all over the neighborhood. Just about everywhere in this neighborhood in Hawaii.
Well, we like to hear about the real deal, because even though we may talk about a lot of metaphysics and spiritual topics, and we try to avoid politics and religions, but I did write a book, Knowing Cosmology, if anybody's interested, on Amazon.com. So if you'll let me plug my book. But he and I got started helping people with events, and then Mutual UFO Network, some commercials. And now he and I are free spirits again, and we're each paying our own shows, but we're sort of doing what's in cyberspace is called reciprocating. that means you help each other as friends in social media. So there's a lot of education out there, and a lot of young people have just got all kind of numbers. But I've had lots and lots of YouTubes, but I haven't tried to do building numbers or making money, just so everybody knows. And I'm just I'm related as a retired veteran woman trying to get a business online going. And I started in 2018, American Communications Online Broadcasting Company. So me and Janet in free social media paying our own bills, they're both in Hawaii. And since I had started my Ascension Center network in Hawaii, I asked them both if they'd like to franchise that name or do something with me. And Tommy and I have only decided, which you know probably according to Blog Talk Radio, the Ascension Church Ohana. And I did get a federal ID number for that to build a 501c3. So we've studied that you have to actually say that. And we sort of have to have a income. So that's why we were setting up donations and either dues. And I put some videos out that to explain that. So thank you, Tommy, for letting me be on your show and started telling them what we're doing in creating community. I hope it keeps up. So back to you, Tommy. And you're doing a great job, by the way, with Tina. I really am impressed.
Okay. For me, truth has always been what I always search for all my life. And truth about religion, I like the word religion, but I also like the word spiritual. But sadly, I don't see any connection between both of them in this physical world right now and a real concept of a God. And it's been slowly deteriorating for a couple of reasons. And one of them is because of other ideas, other programs, and other, I call them programmed people coming out telling stories. Now, I want people to understand that, well, ancient aliens are trying to promote how we got here, why we're here, what aliens did for us and everything. Never in history, in the history that the human race knows right now, after Atlantis, anything that we did was spiritual. Now, it sounds harsh and complex and stuff, but everything man did was programmed into the consciousness of the human race. And that's where the Anunnaki and the reptilians and the Greys all got involved. The thing is, when mankind decided to kill was one major step in the wrong direction. When man decided to eat animals was the second step in the wrong direction. In Atlantis, we didn't eat animals, didn't kill animals. It was so different. And you didn't have to talk much and things like that. So it was a beautiful place. It was incredible. And I'm not going to get into why I'm here now, but basically, when we go through that into where we're now, killers, murderers, rapists, and all those kind of things, abusers, we abuse the planet at every level. That's not spiritual. So when a person says they're spiritual, I always say, why? Donating $100, $1,000, even $1 million doesn't make you spiritual. You give to a charity, 90% of the charities take that money and abuse it for themselves. I work for the phone company. We gave to United Way. The president of United Way bought himself $1 million plane with that money. Really? And half of the people pulled out and given to United Way because of that when they found out that. You have to realize, and I tell people, even the native people who are suffering in the United States, if you're going to send money, don't send to a native charity online or on TV or any of those, not TV, but any place you see it. If you're going to send money to native people, send it to a family there. It's easy to get in touch with a family and send it to the family. That family will split whatever they get to the people around them. Not like the people that are running the tribes. The government runs every tribe in the United States, not the native people anymore. And just so you know, 90% of all the medicine people or the chiefs of these reservations are millionaires now. And they don't give that money to the people.
Oh.
And the reason why is because they're controlled by the government. You do this, we'll give you money. You don't, we'll take your power away. Plain and simple. In the United States, out of all the tribes, there was a couple tribes that they left the native chiefs stay in power. But they're the ones that give over their selves, their consciousness over to the government. The ones that don't, they put their own government in power, meaning they implant people. So it's a serious thing. So the native people have their spiritual truth. And they were outlawed. They were the only people in the universe and on our planet that was outlawed to practice their own religion. In the 1920s, they were allowed to pray. They were given the right to pray again. I mean, they weren't allowed to do half of their ceremonies or anything else. But you talk about religion. Religion, Christianity, when it came to the United States, they forced the native people to become Christians. Is that spiritual? And if they didn't, they killed them. Is that spiritual? Go back in time. Now, people try to talk about Moses. All right. If you know anything about psychic abilities, the things that he did, which kind of relate to things that actually happened, whether he actually physically or not, whether they just happened out of the essence that because he was doing it, I mean, making the river change color, but the scientists came out for reasons why they happened, not his reasoning, but they all did happen. So even when Sodom and Gomorrah happened, there was a disaster that destroyed that land. So whether it was just the person doing it or God doing it is still up to the person. I want to believe the story or not. But if you go back as far as that, you're seeing the history. Because when Moses, people say he was the creator of religion, when he came off the mountain and he told people, here's 10 commandments, he smashed the other 10.
And
he
there
said,
wasn't a Bible back then, right? So make
no,
that
there was
very
no
clear.
Bible. The only thing that was there was
Moses
the
in
10
the
commandments.
Bible. Now you're referring to Moses in the Bible like I was raised, right? The King
Right,
James Version, is that the Gutenberg Press? Are you talking
right.
about that Bible?
I'm talking
And
about the fact
Moses?
behind it. Moses came off the mountain and had
Okay.
3,000 people killed. When he came
Okay.
off the mountain, that's not a spiritual thing. And if you just read a quote that God gave you, thou shalt not kill, and you go down and you have 3,000 people, that's a sin if you look at their religion.
Well,
Now, when
can I talk to you for a minute? Do you mind?
go ahead.
Okay, now you asked me to start the show with you, which is fine because this is my first time with him. Now, he and I don't want people to misunderstand me in social media. He and I have done a couple of videos with a gentleman out in UK, uh, and I've forgotten his name. But Tommy, when we talk about things, we assume people know who we are and who the audience is. And you asked me to start with a man. Now, a lot of people that follow what you're saying, if they're maybe of the Adamic race and or if they're of the uh, Muslim, Christian, or Jewish religions that were, they call them what do they call those three? But you know what I'm saying? So you're assuming everybody knows what you're talking about and who you're talking about. So if I would ask you to go explain when you jump around, because you did explain you talk in circles. But so we are talking about today's sort of a spiritual show. You're introducing me to your world, your people, and you've probably talked about me for a long time as TJ Morris, which is my name and my brand. So when you talk and you're referring to people, you're referring to the people that already know you or to the wider international global audience in cyberspace?
Well, I'm talking to the world in general. I don't talk to individual people unless they talk to me and they want to call me on Skype. Then I'm talking to them because
Okay.
realize people all say they have a truth, and the people that say they're spiritual believe it for some reason. But I say the simplest way to prove anything you think, feel, or know is to look at the world around you.
With your senses, right? You're talking about conscious with
Your
human
thoughts, your
senses.
ideas, your sight, your hearing, smell, all the five senses of the body.
So let's talk about being inside the body. So the inside versus the outside, inner, outer. Let's talk about the dualism at a higher level, which is your body and your mind. So you're speaking that people understand, like an audience, that they already speak English and they're in America and they probably are Christians. They know what the Bible is. So therefore they probably know who Moses is. Because I'm trying to track you as a extraterrestrial, our soul inside a human mind, inside a consciousness, inside a brain, inside a physical form. But people may know that we're going into AI, and a lot of people in the future are going to be talking about me and you as cyborgs that have titanium as cyborgs. So that's going to be one of the big wars in the future in what we're doing now in cyberspace. So you know, You know what I mean? They can see us and we're showing up in human form. Because before we just had our voice. You know what I'm
Well,
saying?
well, again, we each perceive energy, our thoughts in a certain way. We could look at it the way the mind can translate it. The mind is your translator. All right. The programs that feed the mind are what allows it to create what it thinks and feels. Now, if you weren't taught anything by parents, family, or friends, you wouldn't know anything. You'd be
Well, what
crawling
about our
around.
emotional? What about our emotional bodies? Because
All right.
you know, as a human with senses, can we go way back? Because you talked about Atlantis. Since you explained you talk in circles, maybe we should go back to the story of you Atlantis, which I found very interesting before we get into Moses and the Bible, because a lot of people believe Moses was an extraterrestrial that talked to in a human form to another god, according to some of the people in the alien ET UFO community, that was a spaceship he was talking to.
All right.
And you know what
Let,
I'm saying? So,
let's start there. All right. All I can say, and I'm going to say this is why I talk the way I do. I'm aware of every lifetime I had from Atlantis to now.
okay.
Out of all of them, there was only 2 important lifetimes.
So we're talking past lives is the
We're talking all my
topic.
past lives, right?
All
Going
right.
back to the beginning
Life
of the
after life.
planet.
All
In
right.
Atlantis.
Are you an extraterrestrial then because
No,
of your conscious outside of your
no,
body?
no,
You
not at
don't
all.
identify? Well, I
No, not at
identify
all.
as extraterrestrial because I was asked to in this reality to help in this ascension age, which is part of my
Well,
story.
I know we'll kind of get to that
Okay.
in a
Okay.
second. But in the beginning of when I was here on planet in Atlantis, there was no such thing as murder, rape, abuse, killing, and all those words did not exist.
Okay.
We used energy. We used 32 psychic abilities, communication, clairvoyance. We could understand and see each other. We didn't have to say, "What do you think today?" or "What do you want to do?" We just did it together. So it was a humble society. We didn't need the toys, and man, right now, only grows with toys he plays with. Nothing else changes about man. All right. So in that time frame, realize we didn't have to kill all these animals. We didn't have to do this, that, and the other thing that we're doing now.
We had a
So
better understanding with nature because I wrote the Atlantis Oracle and made that music on YouTube, so I have a identifier on YouTube being the Atlantis Oracle. So I've already told people I'm back from Atlantis, so I can agree with you that I believe in Atlantis and I'm witnessing you right now as an Atlantean.
but what we did wrong, I mean,
Mm.
here's the thing. Mankind was moving along on planet Earth in Atlantis in an incredible pace of harmony, compassion. The word love was different at that time frame, but it existed because love meant you had an awareness of God. So everybody was aware of a God, not multiple gods, not deities. They weren't following and worshiping all the different deities. I had a few problems with certain things, which I reincarnated. But when I reincarnated, I lost all the knowledge that I had then. I went through so many lifetimes becoming a preacher, a minister, a rabbi, everything that pertained to spiritualism or religion I could to find truth. And every life that I had within that never attained truth of a real God. Now, that was my first important lifetime was
Okay.
Atlantis. After that,
You're
the
doing a good job of your
only
Atlantean stuff, Atlantean.
I'm gonna go back to that, but when we move forward, the only one important after that was when I was alive, when Jesus was alive. But going back to Atlantis,
Okay.
everything was kind of cool and perfect. I wasn't there when Atlantis was completely destroyed. So I mean, I did a debate with Carrie Cassidy on her show, what actually happened in the end. I wouldn't say I agree with what she said, but it was destroyed by
All
a
right.
race.
Now, since you evoked a human form in your public video that's on YouTube, you said Carrie Cassidy, and I've studied her roughly since you introduced me to her because I didn't know who she was. So thank you for that, Tommy. And so you may want to introduce Carrie because you did some shows. I guess you have a personal relationship with her because I've never met her. I'm very familiar with her like probably 20 years
Well,
helping Hollywood and being a great woman as a journalist and researcher.
all right. What I found, I did a show on her show for 9 months. She never listened to one of the shows I did, which really
Well,
bothered
she
me.
probably, like you and me, when you make these shows to help other people or put out information, she was very busy being a woman
Well, no,
journalist.
she had me on her show 3 times. All
Well,
right.
just remember, she may see this, and right now she still has Carrie Cassidy in Project Camelot. I was just wanting you to introduce her to people since you have a personal relationship with her, since we
Well,
introduced your name on this show.
well,
And I'm
why?
going to be
Well,
on her show, I hope, someday when I
well, here's
grow
the
up.
thing. I could have been on a show. My friend that I did all my UFO work could be on a show, but we were doing our own show. We didn't need her to promote us in any way. We had 12,000 people watching us every day. We had an actual conversation with people, which we gave a
Well,
and
we don't bite the hand that feeds us. So since
well,
you said we don't want to do a lot of advertising for other people, but since you evoked her, and
no,
I
no, I
haven't been
will
on her
say
show
this.
yet.
I
But you were on her assets that she paid for, or was it free? You didn't pay
uh,
her any money.
I didn't pay her, but near the end, this guy that was working with us wanted a lot of money weekly, and I said,
Oh,
"I'm not going to pay that kind of money." But here's the thing:
okay.
she interviews just about everybody out there in the what do you call it?
Well, she's
Spiritual
had
world.
money to travel, or she's
Well,
had
she grubs. No,
friends.
grubs. She hasn't. She asks for donations constantly.
That's
Everything.
good. I
Well,
mean,
that's
doesn't
good.
it cost
I,
money?
but
You're paying money
I look at it a
right now.
totally different way. Spirituality is not a paid thing. You can't buy it and you can't sell it. So how could I make money off of selling it? I don't.
Well, she handles a lot of topics as a journalist, and I believe she has a degree in that. So,
Well,
and she helped produce, and she was getting the truth out with Bill Ryan when they met, I believe, and he had Project Avalon, but that was a project to produce content. And she just wrote her first book. So, just to give her a plug, I
well,
don't even know the name of her book, but you
my
were on
plug
her
is
radio. That's kudos.
I have a problem because when you have like Janet Lawson, she listens to people and she agrees with them, and then she
Okay.
adopts their truth. All right.
Well, why don't we just stick to women in business for
Well, no, no. I want to
themselves?
just finish this thought. When
All
people
right.
adopt what they hear from other people, especially whistleblowers, they get pulled into a world of non-truth, half-truth, partial truth, a programmed idea. Most people that say they're an experiencer are programmed. Aliens program people. That's what they do the best. And when they were given a right to come here and take people, Truman was the first person to say, okay, you can do whatever you want. Make sure you take their awareness away. Sadly, over the
Did he
past,
say that to you personally? Because we
no,
need
but I
to
know people that were
establish
involved
that.
with that. But here's the thing: the aliens people that I dealt with, and people that work with these alien races, especially Evie, all right, when they talked to him and what they allowed him to do, Bill
Okay, now
Snyder.
I'm not trying to be rude. I'm trying to, you brought up EB, which for me means extraterrestrial biologicals. So now let's have you talk to me while everybody's watching. I'll witness you because EB, is that a human or a life form or extraterrestrial or alien? Is that a human like Carrie Cassidy or Janet Lesson? What is that?
No,
No.
EB is an alien that they captured from a ship they shot down. They
Oh,
brought him into a camp, and they were trying to program him, but they couldn't. But they used him. They used him for many years. He was in charge of all the aliens that came here. He was
okay.
head of all the alien grays, for a word, and there's 5 different gray races, but he was in control of all of them. So they were working with him, trying to get information, but they did get information. The information that took their space program from the bottom to the top. All right, and during that time frame, they didn't know EB and his army were eating humans in
Ooh,
large numbers.
I never
All
heard
right,
any of that story. That's new to
you
me.
can hear it real easy. One
Mm.
person that I'm going to tell you to look up and read his story, Phil Schneider. It
I
was
do
one.
know his story. I've seen him on
Well, it's
videos
the
on
most
YouTube.
important story in history in the UFO world. I got one other one that's just as important right now, but his story was the most important because he was sent in with 67 Green Berets to go into a battlefield with these Greys because now they knew something was wrong. And they didn't know where they were going. And when they got in there, they were all killed except 2 people. And
Was
Phil
he an
Snyder,
Atlantean, to circle back to the Atlantean story?
who? Phil Snyder?
Yeah. Did you know him? Or see,
I
all
haven't,
I'm
no.
asking, when you talk about somebody, tell us who you're talking about, because I know, but everybody else may not. So
Well, I have a
just
name
for
of
the
a
sake of
person.
your show.
I can't say his name, who is good friends with Phil Snyder, who
Okay.
told me everything recently. But see, here's the thing. When a person goes from one stream of knowledge to the other side of imagination, there's
Okay.
a borderline that takes away from the knowledge that they say they have. All right. Uh, if I say I believe in Superman, while I say the earth is flat, and then I believe in God. So where's my connection to truth coming out of any of that?
Well, can we go back to you being Atlantean, and you evoked Carrie Cassidy, EB, and Phyllis Schneider? So I hope you don't get upset with me when you go back and hear this story today. But you asked me one time to help you, and you may
All
want to
right.
explain that
We'll go back to
circular.
Atlantis. When
Okay.
Atlantis was in harmony, it was the most beautiful time for planet Earth.
People like that story.
And when you work with people, it was incredible because we use caves, we use a lot of different things. We didn't have to build cars, we didn't have to build submarines, we didn't have to build spaceships. When you travel out of the body, you don't need anything. All right. So when you first step out of your body, do astral projection, remote viewing. Remote viewing is a little different than astral projection. It's like a step down rather than a step up. Astral projection goes into soul travel, which means you're fully aware of soul when you travel. Astral projection, you're in your astral body. Now try to understand that's the most critical thing in understanding all of reality. In your astral body, you can travel out of your body all through the universe, the galaxies, and you can come back here. You can go into the astral plane. All right. And that is as far as you can go. There's something called the silver cord, which very few people know, or some people do, is what connects your soul, that you are, you, to the body that you're staying in. And the reason why it's there is so you don't get lost. Your car can take you wherever you want, which is what I'm talking about is your body. Get on a plane, fly somewhere, you can get on a boat, go somewhere, you can just run, go somewhere. That body is grounded to this realm. So the silver cord keeps that soul, which you are, so that it doesn't get lost without attaining what it's here for.
Now, can I ask you how you learned about that? Because we used to say that in the 70s when I worked with people, Chicken Soup of the Soul people in Houston. And but now when I went out of body in near-death experiences, but I died, I didn't see a silver cord. But Tommy, we're approaching 1 hour. So I think we've done a good job with Atlantean, EB, Carrie Cassidy, and Phil Schneider. And I think we should do a show on each one of those because
So
they're part of you.
we can. I
Okay.
just want to get more ingrained with this one important thought. Uh,
Okay. It's your show. It's 1 hour.
I can do my show all day. I don't have a time limit.
Oh,
But here's the thing: when you learn astral projection, is probably the greatest gift you can be given in this reality. All right, because now you can experience yourself without this body, mind, and heart.
okay. Heart.
The physical
Okay. So
mind.
heart and your stomach is a lot of people has thought of in your soul is your other brain, right?
People,
Your stomach and liver
you
and
know,
heart.
the heart itself only pumps blood through the body. It doesn't have feelings and emotions. All right. The
Uh-oh.
same as the
Tommy, I
body.
have to go. Can we end this? I've got somebody
Oh, no,
delivering.
I could let you go. It was a pleasure
Okay.
having you on,
Yeah,
TJ.
close your show out. Thank you so much. And I would love to come back sometime and bring some of my friends. Thank
No
you,
problem.
Tommy. Are we
Thank
going to
you.
do today's show for me on my Blog
I
Talk
don't know. I'll
Radio?
let you know later. I don't know
TJ
how long.
Marcy. Okay, thank you. Thank you
All
so
right.
much. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. All right, everybody. That was TJ Morris. She'll probably be doing a show later today. I worked with her for many years, on and off with different programs and stuff. But I just want to finish this thing. about soul, which is what you truly are. And when it leaves the body, she asked, how do you know the silver cord? Well, she didn't see it. Very few people look for it. Uh, it can be solid as a rope hanging from you, or it could be just sprinkles of crystals in the air. And however you perceive it, it's there though, and it helps most souls when they leave their body to come back to their body. If you're unaware when it gets cut, you do go to wherever you're at and stay there. And you're probably not aware of anything there, and your karma is probably not balanced right for you to be there. So you will end up reincarnating. You stay on the astral plane for a short period of time, usually, and I'll say short time meaning 5 to 10 years, not thousands of years. When you rise to a higher level of awareness and you go to the astral plane, you can actually get to stay there. Remember, it's only the second step on the ladder, and there's many more steps to get to the top. So when you work from that limited viewpoint, you might think it's everything. There's realms there, different realms, kind of like, and finding things inside this cave, like where people live, it changes. So as far as moving forward, you need to become aware of what soul is, not what the body is. The body is creating all these sicknesses and diseases, and the games that mankind wants to play is hurting us every which way. The toys that I mentioned before that man plays with have nothing to do with spiritual truth. And sadly, when I challenge a person, I'll always say, when you grow a pair of balls, we'll debate. And the reason why I say that, mankind's major sports hobbies, entertainment, comes from playing with balls, little teeny ones in golf, metal pucks in hockey, to football and baseballs. All right. They are just balls, and they spend hours playing with it, making tons of money, taking money away from families, farms, and people. So consider that as, to me, a way to take energy and steal it and abuse people in a way that they don't even know they're being abused. To be attached to a game that's going to end in 2 hours and like it's going to change any part of your reality, no, unless you put a bet on them and they lose, or if they win. So this whole concept of what is important on this planet, there is none. Going to church is not the answer. So we have a lot of things. Hold on, I didn't even get to read in the chat room. Sorry about that. Oh, being quiet as possible, no problem. That's cool. Here's the thing. We have a short time left before this planet gets so bad and so many people do leave in a bad way. We can still fix it. Whether mankind really wants to or not is the sad part. TJ mentioned AI, and we're moving into that. Are we going to allow computers to take over our consciousness? And they really can't, but they can control our reality. If you have cars driving themselves, planes driving themselves, and things like that happening, robots walking around in stores doing all the work that people used to do, yeah, they're going to need less people. Why do you think they need less people? Why do you think they would eliminate more people? The scrolls and the things that have been written always say there's a certain number of people that will survive. And it's not 1 million. It's under 1 million. So we're talking about 7.8 billion people on this planet, roughly. What's going to happen? They're going to die. They'll reincarnate. Might even be a new world. If we destroyed this world, they'd have to go to another world because their karma here isn't fixed. So that silver cord keeps them connected to this body, which hasn't learned much in general. Most people don't learn much. If they do, it becomes different. You leave the silver cord alone until you can actually remove it yourself. and then you realize you're free. Now, coming back into this reality, freedom doesn't exist. There's no place where you can go and have it and bring people to have it. And if you try to start it, it will be taken away. So, people, there's a lot of things going on. Excuse me. But we need to open up the doorway for ourselves and step through it. It's time to make an itch in your life. At least understand why you're really here. Now, I don't know how far she was going to go about the Bible, which I can talk about in detail. I mean, not that I have to. I feel the urge to do it right now. We were supposed to have another guest come on, but that didn't happen either. You know, these inner conflicts with people is pretty sad, because when a person's saying they're spiritual and then they get into a conflict with somebody, something's missing there. So I have an open line, hawksblood1AOL.com. Email me, text me. You want to find out about my books, I can give my first 2 away for free. I'm trying to figure out how to download my newest book onto a book that I can give away. Most of everything right now is going in Kindle, pull up your book and read it. I want to take it out of Kindle and just give it away. So I told you I'm not here for money. I'm only here to help you see a little more truth than what you're programmed to see right now. If you got questions, got feelings, emotions about anything, text me. I can bring you on the show if you ever want to talk about something that you feel is important, and I didn't. I'm always open up for truth that's important to the world, that's not important. So please, people, pass this around, this video. Get people to open their eyes a little about what's going on. I didn't get into detail, but I will next time. Thank you for listening. It's kind of a short show today. I have so much work to do, it's mind-boggling. But until next time, peace, love, compassion, whatever you need in your life. I put 2 pictures up on the top. I don't know if you can pull them up. I'll have to make sure that I do that later. But please, spread the link around at least and get other people that try to listen to this. It gets complicated, and we're only touching the outer part of it. So if you want to go for a ride, become involved, get involved. But till next time, peace, joy, whatever you need in your life. Hope you get it.